Hello, everyone, and welcome back to 1IQ Sports Talk. Sterling here, coming at you with another rundown of a Week 4 matchup. This week we have the Pittsburgh Steelers up against the Indianapolis Colts in Indianapolis. This was an ugly game to start out for the Pittsburgh Steelers. A bit of a wake-up call, I think, to the fans, the players. I think a lot of people were getting a little too hyped up, a little too far ahead on this team, and we hadn't faced much for adversity yet. And this week, that adversity came through in droves. The Colts, they came out ready this week with a game plan designed to move the ball, big chunk plays, extend the field, long pass plays, and the defense struggled to adjust against it early on. They were really having a hard time. The first drive, the Colts managed to just march down the field efficiently and put a touchdown in within 3 minutes from the start of the game, which is deflating when you think about how good this defense has been up to this point in the season. And so that was rough to see. And then the offense just was sputtering out of the gate as well, which unfortunately that's something we've seen from this Arthur Smith offense so far. They have struggled to put up any more than 10 points in the first half yet this year. And so that is something that Arthur Smith really needs to address. They need to find a way to come out and hit the ground running, start the game faster, be able to move the ball. Even if you don't get that touchdown on the first drive, get a field goal, something. But the Steelers weren't able to do either. They just could not move the ball at all on offense in the first half there. And then the second drive for the Colts, they get the ball back and they do the exact same thing. They just march down the field. And Anthony Richardson did go down with a bit of a hip injury on that drive. So we got to see Grandpa Joe Flacco come in. And it didn't look like the Colts missed a beat. He just kept the drive going, and they scored another touchdown, and just kept marching on. And then it was at this point that Mike Tomlin made himself a little bit of a mistake, I think, as well. He took a risk early, down 14-0 early in the first quarter, and he opts to go for it on 4th and 1 on their own 39-yard line, and it did not succeed. Handed the ball right back to the Colts, already almost in field goal range. Luckily, the defense was able to hold at this point and managed to keep the Colts only to that field goal. They gained a few yards, but that was sort of it, and held them to the field goal. And this is where the defense started to adjust a little better and put the brakes on this Colts offense, because the Colts weren't able to score again before halftime. Mind you, the Steelers, it was chugging along slowly through the rest of that first half. Luckily, it was right near the end of the first half. They were able to string a drive together, drove the whole field. They were backed up, went 91 yards, and George Pickens fumbles the football inside the red zone. And so what could have been 3 or 6 points ends up being 0 because of George Pickens. He was trying to just do a little bit too much. It was an awkward catch. I know he wants to get that touchdown, but almost should have just held onto the ball, went down. You're in the red zone. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. The defense does hold again there, and Steelers able to get the ball back again before halftime. And this time they didn't make any mistakes. They went down, got themselves a field goal before the half. Not ideal. Going into halftime in Indy, down 17-3. This is not how this Steelers team is built to play. This is not how they're designed. They don't do well from behind usually. So starting the second half, down 17-3 was difficult. I knew it was going to be messy from then on, and I just had to hope for the best. Luckily, the defense did begin slowing down that Colts offense at this point. They weren't able to just march down the field over and over. Then Partway through the third quarter there, Justin Fields trying to do too much like Pickens was earlier, and just tries to get away from a sack and ends up fumbling the football, recovered by the Colts, and there's another turnover. And so at this point I was getting frustrated. It was not good. I'm sure the whole team was getting frustrated. But somehow at this point in time, it feels like Justin Fields just sort of turned the corner. He changed it up and decided to just start going at this point. Where was I? Fuck. Yeah, so at this point, Justin Fields took the ball back, and they started being able to make some moves. He was protecting the ball better, moving the ball around. It was ugly to watch, but he put this team on his shoulders, and he tried to march them back into this, which honestly is not something we've been used to the last few years with quarterback play, just because, Kenny Pickett, Mitchell Trubisky, they weren't very good at that. Fields spread the ball around well. He was able to rush the ball for 2 touchdowns in the second half and throw for another touchdown to Pat Freiermuth. And everything was starting to look good. We were clawing back in it. The Colts were still putting up points, but 27-24 late in the game. And, final drive for the Steelers. They looked like they were finally going to be able to keep marching this down. And just another unfortunate miscue at this point. Justin Fields back there in shotgun. He's, making some adjustments, looking over to the right, and Zach Frazier snaps the ball early. Justin Fields was not ready for it, and you just see it bounce off his helmet and start going back as a fumble. And luckily, Fields was able to get after it and recover it, but that put them at 2nd and 22 in a bit of a hole, and they just were not able to make those yards back and convert, turning it over on downs and ultimately ending the game as the Colts took it at that point, and all they had to do was kneel the ball. There was a lot of speculation, should Mike Tomlin have called the timeout on 3rd down when Najee Harris wasn't able to get out of bounds, 4th and 11, call the timeout, call a play, and he didn't. He opted to just go hurry up, go for it, get the play in. Is what it is. It's the decision he made. He's a decision he's going to have to live with. It was the wrong decision, in my opinion. You call that timeout, you get the play you want for the 1st down, and then you just try to get in field goal range and tie it at that point. But is what it is. That's what ends up happening. And so while it was a loss, horrible game to watch, just frustrating in all levels of the game, it was promising to see this team able to come together and adjust, mount some sort of a comeback. In the past, down 17-3, it's, you might as well turn it off. The game's over. They were able to march back into this. They got it to, I believe it was 20-17 at one point, and then the Colts were able to score again, make it 27-17, and that was where, we almost made that comeback, but it just, one big mistake at a crucial moment is what ended up finishing the game, and ultimately 3 big mistakes across the entire game were just heartbreakers. Those 2 lost fumbles and the 3rd fumble that was recovered, that's a part of the game that's going to need to be cleaned up. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of ball protection drills happening this week in Steelers practice, because they got to clean those fumbles up. That dominant defense we saw in the first 3 weeks was just nowhere to be found. I know we were missing Alex Highsmith, but Nick Herbig in there was expected to pick up that slack, and they were able to get it going. The Colts, to their credit, they managed to shut TJ Watt down entirely. He didn't manage to get a sack at all this week. The team overall only managed to get 2 sacks, one from Cameron Hayward, and then a duo, of half sacks from a couple other guys. And so That was not great. We weren't able to get any turnovers either. I've said it multiple times over the beginning of this season, and I still believe that this team, the Steelers team, they'll be able to win most games as long as they win the time of possession battle, they win the turnover battle, and they can get 100 yards rushing on the ground from the running back crew. Unfortunately, this week, they only did one of those three things. They were only able to win that time of possession battle, and even that was only by a small margin. They had 31 minutes and change in time of possession, so that leaves the Colts at 28. So pretty much 50-50 split when you break it down. And so losing the turnover battle and then the rushing game, I mean, Najee Harris and Cordarrelle Patterson combined for only 62 yards, which is not enough. I've said they got to get 100 yards rushing on the ground in order to be able to slow this game down to play the style they want to play. Najee Harris only 19 yards on 13 carries, which was disappointing. And Patterson was looking good. He had 43 yards on the 6 carries he had, but went down with an ankle injury partway through the game, and as a result lost him, and it was Najee Harris, and I think the fourth string is Shimpkin or something like that. I'm not sure, but he only carried the ball once the rest of the game. At this point, the Steelers pretty much went to just a pass-heavy offense, which it helped for the comeback purposes, but it didn't help for the diversity and the ability to move the ball around and play the style that they wanted, unfortunately. And so that definitely hurt at that point. Justin Fields, though, he had a decent game by the end of it. He went 22 of 34 for 312 yards, one passing touchdown, no interceptions again. He was sacked 4 times, losing 30 yards, which that is something we would like to see cleaned up, but that offensive line is now looking very banged up. Furtado for the season. James Daniels went down with an ankle injury that appears to now be a torn Achilles, so he is probably done for the year. So it looks like it's going to be Mason McCormick and Spencer Anderson likely getting the starts in those guard positions going forward for this season. So that's going to take some work as well. That's going to severely affect this running game, but they're going to have to find a way to power through that, because the run game is so key to Justin Fields' passing and play action. Fields was also able to add 10 carries for 55 yards, and as I mentioned earlier, 2 touchdowns for him. He did fumble the ball twice, though. One of them he lost, one was recovered. Again, that one off his face mask, which I don't really blame him for. It was good for him. The receiving game, George Pickens, he got involved, 7 receptions, 113 yards, and a fumble. That fumble is something I'd like to have back. I'm sure he would too, because that likely would have led to a touchdown and would have changed the outcome of this game. Pat Freiermuth was able to haul in 5 receptions, 57 yards, and he got his touchdown after the longest stretch of him not getting the end zone for a while now. And Najee Harris also added 3 receptions for 54 yards. So, I mean, even combined catching and running, Najee Harris wasn't able to hit that 100-yard mark. And so that is something that they're going to have to adjust going forward for sure. The running game is something they really have to figure out this week. Big game next week, Sunday Night Football, back at home in Pittsburgh against the Dallas Cowboys. Hopefully this defense can figure out where the issues were, whether it was the secondary or what. The Colts were able to really exploit this, and it's obvious not having Alex Highsmith out there is making it easier for the offensive lines to chip TJ Watt and keep things under control and in front of them. I think the defense, they're just going to need to start shaking it up a little bit more, start throwing some different looks, maybe try moving TJ Watt around the field a little more like some of the other top pass rushers do, just to get different looks and make it more difficult for teams to scheme and plan on just overloading that right side and chipping TJ Watt every time. If we move him around, it makes it more difficult for those O-lines to plan for it all week like the Colts did. And hopefully that remedies the situation. But yeah, it's hopefully the defense can find a way to get back on track this week and get ready for what can be a very explosive Dallas Cowboys offensive passing game. You know, Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb coming into town. That they have shown they can put up a lot of points in a short period. So the defense needs to be ready for that. And Justin Fields, at this point, 4 weeks in, yeah, we lost this week, but he showed to me that he's able to take this team on his shoulders in the fourth quarter and start making some progress and chip away at a lead if there's a deficit that we have to battle against. So I think after this, 4 weeks in, I think he's won this starting job. You know, even if Russell Wilson ends up healthy at some point, I don't think you have enough negative evidence against Justin Fields to justify going back to Russell Wilson. I think this should be Justin Fields' job now going forward. I think they should look at this and continue planning and building for the future and start working on a contract, a 3 or 4 year contract, and get Justin Fields locked up. If he's the guy that they want to run with for the next few years, better to get it done now than wait till the off season and have a bunch of other bidders that could potentially steal him away that way. So we'll see what happens. Arthur Smith needs to figure out how to get this offense rolling earlier in the game. You know, these slow starts aren't going to work against all the teams. Those first 3 teams we played were playing banged up and didn't have much for passing games. The Colts kind of exposed us there in that our offense needs to get things rolling faster and sooner so that we can keep pace with some of these more high octane, high offense teams, you know, especially by the time we get to the back half of the season, when we have that stretch against the Eagles, the Ravens, the Chiefs, you know, the Bengals we play twice. And these are all very explosive offenses that can put up a lot of points very quickly. Arthur Smith needs to find a way to also be doing that. Now that we've seen Justin Fields is much more comfortable in this backfield, he's doing a better job at processing and going through his progressions. Saw a couple times this week where he was flushed out of the pocket and Justin Fields of old would either start running or he would heave the ball downfield. And we saw him reset his feet and throw it over the middle to a check down or to a medium pass, which is promising. That is good progress for the young quarterback. So yeah, hopefully the Steelers can sort out what the issues were this week going into next week where we face Dallas, and I'm hoping for a better outcome next week. So yeah, thank you all for joining me here. I hope y'all like and enjoyed the content. Please hit the like and subscribe button. That way you are getting updated on all the new content that we're sending out your way. I know baseball season just ended for our baseball crew there, so you'll probably be getting some playoff news out of them, and Brendan is always posting his Bears rundown. And check us out on the weekends too when we do our podcast. But other than that, I hope you all have a great day, a great week, and let's start getting ready for week 5. So as always, peace and love, everybody.